Sexual harassment scandal. Senator Natasha Akpabio takes case to UN after suspension. By WealthSphere Media, political analyst. Senator Natasha Akpabio takes her fight to the global stage. The political storm surrounding Senator Natasha Akpabio has intensified as she takes her fight beyond Nigeria's borders to the United Nations, UN, and the Interparliamentary Union, IPU. Speaking at the 69th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women, Akpabio laid out her case, accusing the Nigerian Senate of political suppression and gender-based victimization. With a mix of defiance and determination, she made it clear that her suspension was not just about her, but about a systematic effort to silence women in Nigerian politics. Her appearance at the UN has placed Nigeria in an international spotlight, forcing the government to respond. Honorable Kafilat Adetola Obara, chair of Nigeria's House Committee on Women and Social Development, was mandated by the National Assembly to present the Senate's version of events. The official stance remains unchanged. The Nigerian Senate claims that Akpabio's suspension was based on misconduct, not her sexual harassment allegations. However, critics argue that the timing and severity of the suspension make the Senate's claims hard to believe. Akpabio's speech was not just a personal plea, it was a direct challenge to Nigeria's handling of women's political representation, gender-based violence, and the suppression of free speech. She emphasized the shockingly low representation of women in Nigerian politics, stating that women make up just 3.6% of political offices, with only 2.8% in the Senate. Her suspension further shrinks this already abysmal percentage, reinforcing concerns that Nigeria's political system actively excludes women from leadership roles. Her call for action was not limited to Nigeria. She urged the international community, human rights organizations, and women's movements worldwide to hold Nigeria accountable for what she described as a clear violation of democratic principles. Her words have resonated globally, with women's rights groups and political activists rallying behind her cause, amplifying the #JusticeForNatasha campaign across social media. The Senate's response: denials, deflections, and damage control. In response to the international backlash, the Nigerian Senate has doubled down on its stance, issuing a lengthy statement read by Senate Leader Opeyemi Bamidele. The Senate dismissed Akpabio's claims, insisting that her suspension was strictly a disciplinary measure and had nothing to do with her allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. According to the Senate, Akpabio's actions, including refusing to sit in her assigned seat, speaking without recognition, and making abusive remarks toward leadership, led to her suspension, not her harassment claims. However, the sequence of events raises serious doubts about the Senate's justification. The Ethics Committee swiftly dismissed her petition on procedural grounds, refusing to investigate the sexual harassment allegations, while simultaneously moving forward with punitive action against her. This raises a glaring question. If her petition was truly improperly filed, why not allow her to correct and resubmit it? Why was she immediately punished while the accused faced no scrutiny? The Senate's response also attacked the media, accusing journalists of deliberate misinformation and false narratives about the suspension. It insisted that the case was being twisted to create a political scandal and that its decision was rooted in parliamentary ethics. However, critics argue that this textbook damage control strategy is an attempt to shift focus from the sexual harassment allegations to technicalities about Senate rules. Despite the Senate's efforts to paint Akpabio as disruptive, international bodies, women's rights organizations, and civil society groups aren't buying it. The controversy has only fueled calls for independent investigations into her allegations, with demands that Nigeria's political institutions uphold democratic values and accountability. Gender, power, and the struggle for political inclusion. Akpabio's suspension underscores a much larger issue: Nigeria's chronic underrepresentation of women in leadership. Her case is not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern of systemic exclusion, intimidation, and gender-based discrimination. The Nigerian Senate has a historical reluctance to discipline male politicians accused of misconduct, while women who challenge authority face swift repercussions. A perfect example of this double standard occurred in 2016, when former Senator Dino Melaye was accused of threatening to sexually assault Senator Remi Tinubu, now Nigeria's First Lady. Despite public outrage, no action was taken against Melaye. Fast forward to 2025, and history appears to be repeating itself, with another powerful male senator facing allegations and the woman who spoke out being the one punished. Akpabio Uduaghan's defiance has ignited a necessary conversation about the toxic culture of impunity in Nigeria's political institutions. By refusing to apologize or retract her statements, she has challenged the status quo, forcing the world to take notice. In a country where political power is overwhelmingly controlled by men, her case has become a rallying cry for women's rights advocates and democracy defenders. The senator's international appeal is a strategic move. By taking her fight beyond Nigeria, she is forcing the government to justify its actions on a global stage. This tactic has proven effective in other countries, where international pressure has led to policy changes, judicial reviews, and even resignations of high-ranking officials. If international bodies such as the UN and the IPU demand an independent inquiry, the Nigerian government may struggle to maintain its current stance. What's next? A legal battle, public pressure, and global scrutiny. Akpabio Uduaghan has made her next steps clear. She will not apologize, she will not retract her statements, and she will continue fighting for justice. Despite the personal, professional, and financial consequences of her suspension, she remains committed to seeing her petition through. She has vowed to resubmit her case on the very first day she is reinstated, and is actively working with legal teams, women's rights organizations, and international bodies to challenge her suspension. Public support for her fight continues to grow, with protests in Abuja, widespread social media campaigns, and increasing pressure from global women's movements. If the Nigerian judiciary takes up her case, it could set a historic legal precedent protecting women in politics from institutional retaliation. However, if the suspension stands, it could reinforce the notion that powerful men in Nigerian politics are untouchable, while women who challenge them face career-ending consequences. Beyond the legal front, Nigeria's reputation is on the line. If the international community continues to push for accountability, the government may be forced to take action, whether through an independent review of the case or by introducing stronger legal protections against political harassment. Either way, this case has already exposed deep cracks in Nigeria's governance structures and gender policies. As the world watches, the next few weeks will determine the trajectory of women's political participation in Nigeria. Will Senator Akpabio Uduaghan's fight lead to real change, or will the system crush her efforts like so many before her? One thing is certain, she's not going down without a fight, and this time, the world